regular meeting of the Goose Creek CISD Board of Trustees to order at 6:02. Ms. Barat-Timms, was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Mr. Flood?
All right. President Guy, school board members, Dr. O'Brien, the opening exercises for the February 5th board meeting will be provided by the students from Clark Elementary. Adeline Gurza and Jalen Lee will be presenting the pledges. We will begin the opening ceremonies with a prayer led by Mr. Clem. Everyone, please rise for the prayer and remain standing for the pledges.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening where we can come together to mold and shape the future of our school district. I want to thank you for each person present tonight, especially our students and our junior chefs who showed us their creations tonight. Please bless each family that's here and give them safe travel home. And finally, I ask you to lay your guiding hand on this board as we make decisions tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. The fifth grade choir students from Clark Elementary will be singing the songs entitled Count on Me and My Favorite Things. The students are under the direction of music teacher Kevin Lewis and principal Kim Scheidt.
Thank you, guys. Are there any parents in the audience? If you'll stand up so we can recognize you. Thank you for coming.
Let's give another round of applause for the students at Clark Elementary. At this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Anthony Price for the first set of recognitions and acknowledgments.
Thank you, Ms. Flood. School board members, President Guy, Superintendent O'Brien. In the back corner of the room, we have our maintenance men and women. If you all would stand. These are some of the hardest working men and ladies in our district. They go above and beyond the call of duty so often. You may be seated. Mr. R is going to talk more about them in just a little bit, but I am going to ask for them to come up front. And President Guy and Dr. O'Brien, I would like for you to join us in a photo. Adam Hammers, Mike Bollinger, Isaac Blanco, and Romero Sereno. These young men right here went above and beyond the call of duty. There was a faculty member, a teacher, at one of our elementary campuses. She had gone out to move her car, and she had put her phone in the car. Well, in the midst of this, she fell. She slipped down in the mud, and due to medical limitations, she was unable to get into her car to her phone to call for help. Her iWatch on her wrist, the battery was dead. You may think, well, okay, that was good for them to see that, but she was in the mud for over an hour. Mr. Hammers happened to go by and see her at that time, and he asked if he could be of assistance, and she told him that the story. He immediately called for help, and the other three gentlemen came, and they got her up out of the mud, got her cleaned up, and got her into her car where she could call for help and get the assistance that she needed. So with that, I think that deserves a big round of applause. We have certificates for each of these gentlemen. It reads Certificate of Excellence. This certificate is proudly awarded to their names for your extraordinary service and contributions beyond the call of duty for your profession. We are delighted that you have showed a giant-sized act of heroism. We take pride in providing this certificate to each of you, signed by Michael Rasmussen and Anthony Price.
You say you're buying them dinner at Saltgrass? Yeah, you can. There ain't nothing on it, but you can get it. You can't give them a certificate without feeding them, though. That's all I'm saying. They're the ones that do all the work. That's what I'm.
Perhaps I can speak loud enough. But I'd just like to share that we're really a connected community. Some of us have children that work in the district. Some of us have children in the district. Some of us have parents that work in the district. Some of us are graduates of the district and did all of our schooling, K-12 education here. So it's a connected community. And these guys are truly dedicated men and women. When I say guys, I mean them all. But truly dedicated to service the schools and the community that we're a part of. They are willing to put in extra hours. They get called out after hours and sometimes in emergencies. We've had a number of emergencies over my tenure here, starting with Hurricane Harvey in 2017. We've had a number of floods and freezes as well, and they continue to rise up and become the giants that we need to service the district. So at that time, just thank you for the acknowledgement and the recognition. Just we're grateful to be a part of a wonderful community where we can serve the students and staff and the facilities so that they're operating properly.
Just stop talking and come get in the field.
Oh, sure.
Board members, you should have also received a recognition from Senator Carol Alvarado's office on your desk as well. And then for our final recognition, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bollinger and his team. Yeah.
Is there a PowerPoint with this presentation? Is there confetti?
Okay, good evening, Lady President Guy, Dr. O'Brien, members of the board. We would like to celebrate a significant achievement from our school district. This past Friday, we received notice from TEA. It was a good notice from TEA that our teacher incentive allotment, also known as TIA, our TIA plan has been fully approved. This remarkable accomplishment is a testament to the dedication, hard work, and visionary leadership that has been displayed by all of those who have been involved in the process. Brooke Dockery, our Associate Director of Compensation, has led this effort for the past 2 years, and at this time she wants to say a few words.
The teacher incentive allotment was built into Texas state law as part of House Bill 3 during the 86th Texas legislature. The purpose of TIA is to elevate the teaching profession by recognizing and rewarding educators who demonstrate exceptional skill, dedication, and impact in the classroom, and to attract and retain top talent. Through approved local designation systems, districts can identify and designate outstanding educators based on student growth and classroom observation. The TIA operates on 3 distinct levels of designation: recognized, exemplary, or master, each representing varying degrees of excellence and proficiency. The funding available varies by designation, and districts with designated teachers serving in schools with high level of socioeconomic need will receive higher allotments. Based on the data submitted this past fall from the 22-23 school year, TEA has identified 164 teachers that will receive a designation. We estimate the district will receive over $1.5 million that will be paid out to those teachers this summer.
Okay, so it's a pretty complicated process. It's been a 3-year process, and I think it's important to recognize Brooke Dockery. She's led this effort. Her outstanding leadership in spearheading this monumental effort has been noticeable. Her ability to navigate the complexities of the TIA process, which requires several hoops for us to jump through and submit several pieces of data throughout the years. She's worked with campus leaders, she's worked with district leaders and a committee to ensure that our data is valid and it's reliable, and it's connected to our directly to our highest performing teachers. So we're excited that we've been approved for TIA, that our highest performing teachers will receive additional funds. The funds will go directly to them. Also, it targets teachers at high-risk schools, and so we feel like that's important as well. That's the purpose of the program. And so now that we've received this approval, we look forward to expanding our TIA program so that we can include more teachers in the process and qualify them for the program. So we're very excited about this. How about one more round of applause for Brooke Dockery and also just the approval.
One other note that you did not mention, Dr. Bollinger, is that many districts submit their application multiple times before being approved. And with Ms. Dockery's persistence and getting things right before submission, we were approved on the first submission. So congratulations.
Good job.
Can we do this annually? Oh, good.
This concludes our recognitions and acknowledgments. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Dr. O'Brien and the Board of Trustees.
Okay, I think we're ready for our public hearing on academic performance.
We have Mr. James Husband. Ms. Ginger McKay will be presenting our public hearing for the TAPER report.
Good evening, Board President, Ms. Guy, board members, and Dr. O'Brien, Superintendent. This is our annual district report. There are 8 sections to this report, and we will be kind of going through each one of those. So the first section is the TAPER, the Texas Academic Performance Report. That is compiled from data from PEAMS and then also the student assessment data. It is published in a PDF, and it gives information on several different topics, and we'll kind of talk about those as we go along. The TAPER always starts with the cover page. As you know, the 2023 accountability rating is delayed, and our special education determination status is also delayed, as well as our distinctions. So the cover letter, there's not really anything on it because it says everything is delayed pending the outcome of the court case. So in the TAPER, it does talk about STAR performance, and what we have here on this slide is our ELA reading levels, all grade levels at approaches, meets, and masters when compared to the region and to the state. And as you can see, at the approaches level in ELA, we are a little below the region and a little below the state, same way for meets and the same way for masters. For math, we kind of have the same trend. We're a little below the region and the state in approaches, and then also in meets, and then also in masters. In science, we are a little below the region and the state in approaches, a little below in meets, and then also in masters. Social studies, we are below the state and the region in approaches and meets, and then also in masters as well. And then all subjects combined, we are a little below the state and region in of approaches and meets, and then also in masters as well. The next slide here is that you see our star performance, our 3-year comparisons. You'll see in 2021, we had 38% of our students were at the meets grade level for all tests. It went up to 46% in 2022, and it dropped down to 44% in 2023. For the state, they were at 41% in 2021. They increased to 48% in 2022, and then they increased a little bit more to 49% in 2023. So those are our 3-year trends. In the taper report, this is also section 1. It does discuss our CCMR. We are above the region in the state in the percentage of seniors that met at least one CCMR indicator. We were at 84.6%, where the region was at 66.7% and the state was at 70%. And then it's broken down into college ready versus career ready. We're actually above the state average in our college readiness graduates. We're at 67.2%. And then our career ready graduates are also above the state and the region. We are at 49.4% career ready. Section 2 talks about the PEAMS Financial Standard Report. This is from 2021 because the 2022 data is not released until late spring of 2024 for 22-23. So what it shows there is that our total revenue per student for Goose Creek versus the state, total revenue, we're a little below the state with that. Total expenditures, though, we are a little above the state average with that. Operating expenditures, we do spend more on instruction than the state average. Instructional support services, we are a little below the state average. But central administration per student, we're actually a little below the state average. And then district operations per student, we are a little above the state average. Section 3 is our accreditation status. In 2021 and 2022, there was not an accreditation issued due to COVID. But in 2023, we got a Goose Creek rating of superior for first rating, and then Goose Creek accreditation status was accredited, so we are accredited. Section 4 of our report discusses campus performance objectives, and that's basically your campus improvement plans, and all of those are approved by the school board. It does measure each campus's progress toward meeting those objectives, and those are posted on the website. Section 5 of the report is a report on violent or criminal incidents. This includes the number, rate, and type of violent or criminal incidents that occurred on each campus to the extent permitted by FERPA. And so to comply with FERPA and TA masking requirements and to conceal the identity of the students involved, we will not publish the report due to our small number of incidences. No campus in CISD had the incident rate above 1% or more. Actually, total incidents for all campuses combined to less than 0.1%. Section 6 is the student performance in post-secondary institutions, and this is for our 2020 graduates. Goose Creek had 50.16% of students enrolled into a higher education. The region had 51.2. The state average was 47.9. We were a little above the state. And then it breaks it down. The total number of students out of that class was 1,555. 170 of those students actually enrolled into a 4-year public university. It breaks down the GPA there for those students, but that were reported. We had 582 students, but that enrolled in 2-year public education public colleges. It breaks down their GPA as well. We had 23 that enrolled in independent college and universities. And then there were 780 that are not trackable or not found, and those include students who have enrolled in higher education outside of Texas. And so there's our total graduates as well. Section 7 talks about our progress toward meeting our board-adopted AHB 3 goals. This includes our early childhood literacy and mathematics proficiency plans. That's our 3rd grade reading and 3rd grade math, and then also our CCMR. Originally, the goals were adopted in 2020, and goals will have to be set by the board during the summer of the 23-24 school year for the next 5 years. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get to the superintendent's report. We're going to break down the HB3 a little bit more. But just know that those goals will have to be reset at the end of this year for the next 5 years. Then the last section of the report is the taper glossary. They do have that in English and Spanish, and the links are there provided. The district's taper will be posted on the district website within 2 weeks after this meeting. You can get paper copies from the district's central office in each campus. If you have questions, you can contact me. And at that, are there any questions?
Well, I know, James, that this report was the data, and you were crunching the data on that. I think during the superintendent's report, you'll come back and talk a little bit more generic about what that means. But we do want to open up the floor for anyone in the audience who may have questions about the data as it was presented for the public hearing for the Texas Academic Performance Report 2223. Any questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Minson.
Welcome back, Jeff.
So there were a couple of things that we're in the process of doing. One of those is we are reaching out to other There were a couple of things we are doing. So one of the things we are reaching out to the other districts to see what are they utilizing for their curriculum. Are there any changes we need to make to our curriculum? One of the things we have noticed is that, and we're going to talk about this in the superintendent's report, is that when we start looking at our teachers, we have a lot of teachers that have 0, 1, or 2 years of experience. And so we're looking at our PD plans and saying, hey, what do we need to do for those adjunct professors? What do we need to do for those DOI teachers to make sure that they have that pedagogical knowledge to be able to teach to that Tier 1 instruction? So we are looking at those things. Those are a couple of things we're looking at. And that's one thing we are looking at. We noticed the same trend, and we are looking at our early literacy. We know, but that we have a strong kindergarten and pre-K foundation, and there does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect as they move up. And so we are looking at those items as well, because we're seeing the same correlation that you just saw.
Great question, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. I can speak to that just a little bit, Mr. Husband. We've hired a third-party company. Their name is Moak and Casey, and their entire purpose is to stratify data, as you've suggested, and identify at-risk factors. I think there's 13 at-risk factors, and they have developed what's called a heat map for Goose Creek CISD, and the heat map identifies where those at-risk factors lie across our region. And it helps us to identify. One of the things that administration has done in this case is when we have a high at-risk population, we may reduce the student-teacher ratio on a particular campus, which means we invest more payroll into that campus in order to provide more direct instruction, if you will, a more supported instruction. So that's one of the strategies that we employ, and it is based upon a third-party vendor coming in and doing that data dive on the at-risk factors specifically, not It's our job to do the data dive on TEKS objectives. Which objectives are being covered? Which does it look like are not being covered? Are there pedagogical shortfalls in our professional development at the beginning of the year? And one of the things I'm proud of the C&I department for doing is spreading the professional development throughout the school year. So on our calendar, you'll see a half day of professional development scattered every 6 weeks. So we've addressed a lot of the strategies, and some communities have apparently rebounded from COVID quicker than we have. We rebounded quicker with technology, I think, than any other district in our region. But we're still playing some catch-up, it looks like, with our academic.
I'd like to add something to this question. I would like to say that Ms. Jackson, although she couldn't be here tonight, she would have shared that they've tried in the last year and a half to strategically look at the curriculum, and so that we're more systematic at every campus, and that, you know, if a principal wants to use some type of curriculum, they have to go through a system with our C&I directors to make sure that, is it something we need to use or not? If it is it for everyone? So that if a student moves from one campus to another, they're not starting one curriculum here and there's a different one over there. So having a real systematic way to do that. And that probably was a little shaky a few years back, but they're getting a little stronger on it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that we were below the state. And I was curious, you said it was lack of experience for some of our teachers is what you...
I said professional, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I said professional, we're looking at the professional development, but that we're providing to our adjunct professors and our DOI instructors to make sure that, because they didn't go to school for teaching. And so to give them the personal development to make sure that they can effectively communicate and have that tier 1 instruction.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm just curious, do you think that the other school districts, or do you know whether the other school districts hire new teachers like we do, or are they doing something different? You know,
well, the DOI certification would answer that question. If you are a district of innovation, you may hire someone that has a bachelor's degree but not in teaching, and so they're missing 18 hours of pedagogy. Right. And so some districts are district of innovation, and some have chosen not to do that. So that would be one measuring stick. What else? In comparison to other districts that are doing better in the region, I think was his example.
Is anybody doing worse than we are? I mean, if you're going to look at the picture, you got to look at the whole picture.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
I'm sure if we broke down the schools by region, in our region, there are a couple of districts that are doing lower than we are, but we're not where we want to be, for sure.
Right. And then the other thing is, I guess, you know, inexperienced teachers and lack of teachers, I guess, because you said that the number of students, the ratio per teacher and students is kind of high. Is that what you were implying? That's why they can't get one-on-one instruction? Or
no, sir.
Okay.
The application was specifically to the identified at-risk campuses. Okay. It's not we are short teachers on those campuses. We add additional teachers to that campus to lower the student-teacher ratio. The lower the student-teacher ratio, the more likelihood for the delivery of instruction. The larger the classroom, the less likely. Because kids have such diverse needs. Some kids are getting it first time, some kids need remediation, some kids need additional support, whether it be a pull-out or things of that nature. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction.
Yeah, I get it. And the thing is are these other campuses around us or regions or in the state not suffering the same things that we're suffering?
No, I think it's fair. That's a fair question, and we'd be glad to present that. What we get graded on is 10 campuses similar to the campus that's being evaluated. we're clustered with a group.
We're clustered with 40. It's a
40
comparison
whole,
group.
okay,
Right.
40
Yes, sir.
whole
Yes, sir.
comparison group. So that is the comparison group. I think the team would be glad to present that group, who that group are. I doubt we would put who's lower than us on a report, yeah. But you would see the schools that we're compared to.
Well, they're putting it on the state report that we're
right.
lower than everybody else. So,
well,
I mean, I'm not afraid of
right.
pointing those facts out to nobody.
Right.
If they're
data
doing
is
it to
data.
us,
Absolutely.
Right?
Data is data.
Right. So, just food for thought, I guess. I mean, I remember the days when we were recognized a lot for education, and now we're below par, it seems like. So I'm just curious as to why.
I would say it's cyclical. Good years and bad years.
But I wouldn't blame it on COVID. I mean,
no, we're long past that. We're long past that.
I mean, I'm just saying I wouldn't blame it on COVID. That's so. I was just curious because it's interesting to see that we're doing, not doing so well compared to the state, and that concerns me, and so. Okay, what kind of turnaround or timeline? Are we going to have to wait 5 years till we figure out again where we're at comparison to the rest of the state? I mean, or how soon will we know with these things that we're going to implement, I guess?
What I would say is I think we're going to share some additional information during the superintendent's report that may help to bring some of your questions into play, because there are some things that Ms. Fox will share with the TSIA and how we're doing some of the college readiness things and SAT that kind of bring it all into like a bigger picture, and maybe some of those questions might be answered, but then it might also provide you with some other questions you might want to ask. But I think there's data we have sitting in that report that probably will be helpful to just the public hearing as a whole.
The public hearing is required by law, and it's just the facts, Jack, so to speak. I think that the campus improvement plans will be addressed, potentially some of the other questions that you have.
That'd be great if y'all could bring it into focus for me, because I can't really see what's happening right now.
And I would say whatever we don't do as far as getting it to focus, I think that's something we would be sure to bring back. Because I think the question about the comparison groups is oftentimes people think the 40 campuses that we're going to be compared to are right in our area, when actually they might be all over the whole state. So it kind of brings that into perspective too. So there's lots of things we can bring that we may need to after this evening.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think I'd want to answer that specifically tonight, because I don't think that would be the only mitigating reason why. I think there's probably a number of different reasons. It could be one of them. Could be. They have certain factors that they use for us to be compared. I'm not going to tell you that's exactly one of them, but there are a number of different things, and they're all the same. It's like, do they have the same exact percentages similar in ethnicities? Do they have the same exact at risk? Do they have the same exact LEP? Do they have the same exact special ed? So there's certain categories of how they rate us. Not necessarily sure I've seen it as far as like what their literacy level is or what their curriculum level is. So it's more of the generic things that would be similar to what's for the accountability for the state. Could be. There's a number of there's lots of them. We can bring that forward because it's probably been a while maybe since we've had that presented, and that might be helpful.
Thank you. Don't go far.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Garcia, do we have any citizens participation? Okay. So we will move on to approval of minutes for the January 22nd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Campisi, a second by Mr. Renteria. Have any discussion? Any questions? All in favor, raise your hand. I have 6-4, 0 against. Motion passes. And so now we move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, and that will bring Mr. Husband, Ms. Fox, and Ms. McKay back up.
That was quick.
Good evening again. This report is our taper. It will go more in depth, and then also our House Bill 3. We will go through some of that data.
Could I know why we didn't receive this until 2 hours and 15 minutes before tonight's meeting?
It was posted. We broke it apart into two different PowerPoints. Is what it was. It was posted before.
But this is this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's why the other one was so much shorter.
There are no additions to the slides.
Okay.
There are no retractions.
So, okay, I did not catch on to that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And so again, the taper is compiled of PEIMS data and then also our student assessment data. It is in a PDF. We talked about our cover page, about how everything is delayed at this point. Our student performance, it does talk about our student performance. It does talk about our all subjects at the meets grade level and below. We kind of talked about that. It is reported for each assessment, all grades by subject.
This brings into play what y'all were asking about on how we did. And so I think you could see here is like, where we were and where we were. We're not, we didn't drop 20 points, just little percentages in between them. So we've got some strength. We just got to get it back where we need it to go.
So one part that we didn't talk about is our academic growth. And academic growth is calculated in readings, grades 4 through 8, and then our English 1 and English 2, and then also in math 4 through 8 and algebra 1. You can see our academic growth in both. We were at 73% in 2022. We're at 62% in 2023. For reading, we did see kind of a significant drop there from 76 to 58%. And our math went from 69 to 66% in our academic growth. When it's broken down by our sub-pops, you will see that it starts with our all-student groups. You'll see across the board, it looks like Goose Creek is a little below the state average, except in a couple of areas. We are comparable with the state in the Hispanic sub-pop. We are also a little above the state average in the economically disadvantaged sub-pop. We're at 39% at meets. The state was at 38%. And the other ones, we are either comparable or a little below.
So now some excitement. They said, well, Ms. Fox comes up, we're going to have some more information, so I hope you're ready for this. So when we look at these slides, some of our bragging points, and these are our celebration opportunities, is really when we look at our CCMR rating. So Goose Creek beats everything out in the region and the state with what we do with our college and career military readiness indicators. But something I want to comment on the right slide, where you see the 67 and the 49, we really are balancing that and saying we are doing things that are specifically like academically focused, as well as career through our CTE programs. And those are measured at the state level through our industry-based certifications. Typically, when you see the part where you're saying the college-ready indicators, those are testing components for the most part, as well as dual credit. And we'll talk a little bit more on the next slides. But these are really points of celebration for Goose Creek across the board. Thank you. So this slide breaks it down. So when you see the top area where you see TSI, AP, Associate, dual credit, industry-based cert, the advanced diploma for SPED, and the IEP. Those are the factors that are measured when you calculate CCMR. And to say it in a nice way, we are killing it. So some of the efforts that we're putting in with TSI, I really want to brag on, because we focus some of our efforts with our CNI team. We're saying, how are we in curriculum embedding those pieces into our classes? And so our English 3 and our Algebra 2 have built-in pieces of TSI readiness in the curriculum, so they're taught it. It's not a surprise, show up for a test and see what it looks like. It's things that are inched along the way. And then we take our senior kiddos that have not been, let's say, demonstrated TSI readiness, and then they're in a senior level class that does that a little more direct and a little more specific. So partnering as a CNI team and really saying, what are we doing to empower our teachers and empower our kids? TSI is really shining bright for us, even more than the state. So the other parts that you'll see on there is you see our AP. We have some more focused efforts with Dr. Ramirez and her department in looking at how we can amp that up even more. Our associate's degrees are doing quite well and healthy, and we continue to have success at our early college high schools. But really looking also at that dual credit, that is a pretty big, nice number, and our dual credit is still continuing to be very successful with our interventions and supports that we provide through all of our high schools. Industries-based certs will look a little different in the future with the state and the way that we get to calculate those, but we're above the curve because a lot more of our focus is on the instruction piece that I talked about with TSI. So even if the state looks at all of their business a little differently with IBCs, we're still going to be ahead of the game with our college readiness piece. So definitely points to celebrate, because we are way above the state and all of those pieces. And so just a side note, Mr. Renteria, you mentioned, so how is it? We're closing those gaps with our kids. Wherever they are, we're meeting them, infusing, giving them foundation, and growing them specifically in our high schools. So
that's great.
We're really proud.
You know, I would like to see you stay at par with the state.
I don't disagree, but I wanted to celebrate the point because we're happy for it. So.
And
I'm listening.
I will point out also, but that the TSIA is also an alternative substitute for the STAR test. So with us being above the state average, we do have some kids that are being college ready and getting their CCMR points because of that as well.
One other note on this slide is that our special education students are doubling the state average. Number of kids that we serve that meet those requirements are almost double what the state does for those kids.
Lots of opportunities for celebration, and I appreciate Mr. Husband saying that part, because Dr. Akers and I are working with all of the campuses to see how many of those substitute assessments, which would be the TSI, would count for that English 2 assessment, because we are seeing better pass rates with the TSI over the STAR assessment. So trying to hit it on all pieces for CCMR.
So how much do you think that Lee College is helping us with our graduating students, like in terms of our academics?
Anything we can do to support kids to be more college ready and to leave our buildings with college credit is all that much more that they'll go to college
that's great,
and continue
but that's not
and
what
persist.
I asked. How much do you think Lee College is helping our students to perform better, I guess, academically? Not just with, not just with industrial jobs and all that, but academically.
I think
like say for math and reading, do they help us at all?
When you talk about our college prep English and our college prep math courses, which are typically those senior level kiddos that haven't met TSI, we partner with them. So the people that are over the math and over the English, they're partner with our CNI. And so let's say that they kind of make all of those plans together that complement their side and ours. So I want to say that that's an asset to us building more of a transition and a foundation to make sure we're covering both sides. But I'm always going to tell you, anything I can add to a kid's toolbox when they leave us is always going to be a bonus for me.
I get it. I just remember when I left high school and I went into college with math in particular, it's a totally different world in math in college versus learning in high school.
100%. So the college prep English and the college prep math are directly aligned as that transitional course for that, either to help you meet standard or to be prepared to transition to a junior college. So we partner with them, and it's all kind of blended together with the curriculum and PD and everything.
So they do help good.
They do.
What I'm hearing, I'm hoping.
They do.
Because back in the day, we didn't have that, and when you went to college and you went into a math class, you got your eyes open real fast.
You sure did. So I'll also just add that Sarah Felucci and Angela Cornelius lead that charge with connecting with their people. And sometimes, it's a little give and take. What do you need? What do we need? But that's how we come together to make better curriculum and instruction for our kids. So. Okay, so other post-secondary indicators. We do a school day SAT in Goose Creek. I do want to comment on the average ACT scores. We don't focus specifically in Goose Creek on ACT. That would be like if you had an interest to take that test. We only had 18 students that contributed to those scores last year because we used the College Board Suite. So you're saying, well, what is the College Board Suite? So SAT is part of College Board. So is PSAT. So is AP. So we keep our focus in that one target area. And so our kiddos take the SAT. And if they are not TSIA ready, we also focus some of our friends that might need more of a TSIA focus on taking that test as a primary test.
In celebration, we are above the region in the state in that, or on the average SAT score.
Thank you, James. Sorry, I was explaining. You're good. So also, again, super celebrating our dual credit course completion. We definitely are above the state and the region in that. AP, again, we have some areas to focus on with our AP performance and the way we construct everything for that and support our kids, and so that's going to be a dedicated focus. And then we have our early college kiddos that contribute to our associate's degrees, and we continue to have a lot of success there as well.
Good.
So the next part of the taper is our attendance, graduation, and dropout rates. You will see that our attendance is actually above the state average. We're at 93.2, and the state was at 92.2. Our chronic absenteeism is actually below the state average. Our graduation rate is quite significantly above the state average. The state average is 89.7. We were at 94.3. And then our dropout rate is half of what the state's is. We're at 1.1, and then the state is at 2.2.
That's awesome. Well, those numbers were good.
Our student demographics, we are at a higher economically disadvantaged percentage than the state. Our 504 numbers are a little bit higher than the state. Emergent bilinguals were a little below the state average. Students with dyslexia were a little above. Foster care we're below, homelessness we're below, but our at risk we're at 52.7% of our students are at risk.
Can you remind us what at risk means?
There are 13 indicators, and so at risk is that they are at risk. Something could hinder them from
homelessness, single parent family, poverty,
pregnancy.
So being economically disadvantaged is not at risk.
That's what I was going to say. Okay. And I don't see how we got that high number, especially when everybody works in the plants around here. They
don't live here.
That's okay. Gotcha.
I can tell you one indicator that really it stays with them the entire time is once a kid is retained in first grade, it does not go away.
Yeah.
Whereas if you fail STAR, but you were able to make a better percentage and you can outscore it at some point, you can have the indicator taken off. So most homelessness can be taken off, but that is the one indicator that's unfortunate. But that's because they want us to monitor and make sure they don't drop out of school. So they're making us do that. Now, if a parent chooses to retain a child, that does not go down as the indicator. It's only if we do.
Right.
How are we, would you say, I call it the tri-state, right here for as Goose Creek, LaPorte, HISD, Crosby, Humble, all of these different school districts around. How do we match up with them with the economically disadvantaged students ratio? In other words, we're at 77.6. What would be some of the, do you have an idea?
I'm not sure right now to be able to tell you their exact numbers, but we certainly could provide that to you, not necessarily as a meeting, but just as information if the board needs that. Because it is interesting, there's an assumption that they're all going to be similar, but, at this point right now, I couldn't tell you if Crosby was higher or lower than we were.
Do we measure the things we have here? Can we look at every district around,
Yes.
say 10 districts, and
Yes.
say we have the same question? Can we find out how they stand up number-wise as this and have something that we can get as a
Sure.
board so we'll know, if we're here or there or whatever?
Yes, sir.
I
I
didn't
think
know
so.
if that
If
was-
there's some specific school districts you want, if you'll let Noemi
No,
give her list, just a
in-
general area of the
just in
top
this
10. Sure.
close proximity.
I think that you would look at those in comparison with the district size.
Right.
True.
Because it's not going to be
Correct.
perfect if you have a district smaller than you,
I'm
because your
not
numbers
really
are different.
worried about size. I'm just worried about numbers.
Well, the comparison group is what we want. So the 40 schools, we'd like for you to provide that to the board, and then regionally, how we compare to our region as well. Those two factors coming in a forthcoming superintendent's report through CNI assessment and accountability would be good.
You're still not getting it. I'm just saying, school district 8, whether you got 7,000 or 100,000, I'm just trying to see what their numbers are, what they compare to, not us.
Just an overall. I am absolutely hearing what you're telling me. I am. It's every school district in the Houston area. I would just list them all with that same indicator information, and then. Yep, we got you.
He had a tutor when he was in college.
That's okay.
He played
I
football,
understood what he asked.
so he had to have a tutor.
Yes.
I had a tutor.
We got you. We got you.
I had a tutor. Hey, look.
He got help.
Yeah, you had to go when I was there. You had to go.
I wouldn't know.
Hey. And then, so we do have our enrollment by instructional program. We are below the district average, the state average in the bilingual ESL education. Gifted and talented, we're a little below. Special education, though, we're above the state average in that we're at 14.9. The state average is 12.7. This is our ethnic distribution of Goose Creek students. We are 64% Hispanic, 16.5% African American, 14.9% white, and then we have 0.1% at Pacific Islander, American Indian 0.3, and Asian 1.5. Staff information is also provided on the taper. As you can see, we are a little below the state average in teachers. We are a little above the state average in central admin, and then also our auxiliary staff.
So let me talk about this slide. So we noticed that there was one that kind of popped out a little bit, just so we would talk about it now, and that is the central administration appears to be over double what the state is. And so this afternoon we took a chance to go and look at our coding, and there are 93 people that are in this group. And of the 93, there are 43 that are not really administrators. They are a district specialist, but because they are centrally in the system under the organization of the district, they automatically count them there.
So what are they specialists at?
They're the special ed that goes out and helps teachers in the classroom. There are bilingual specialists that go help our bilingual teachers. There are all of our math, science, social studies, English language arts. They are also...
so the rest of the state don't have these same specialists?
What I would tell you is it depends on how they are coding them in teams.
Right.
Ours are coded this way. I would not know what...
Maybe we need to recode then.
And I would tell you that we've had a conversation about that this afternoon so that we can take a look at it.
Because I'm seeing a lot of we're low on teachers and high on administration.
And that's exactly why I decided we'd have a little bit of conversation about that one. Because I think we knew that it does look that way. So that is what we will look at. And what we also noticed is some of the individuals listed in professional support, such as, I'll just ask you, Mr. Renteria, where do you think I am? As a central administration or?
Yes, central administration.
That's not where I'm listed. I'm listed in professional support. In the report. So it really brought attention just looking at it. I'd never seen the report before, but when I pulled it.
So let me pull a Jeff Menson then.
Go ahead.
Is there a correlation between not having enough teachers and our dive in our academics versus having more administration and having to dive in it?
Well, I think
I'm just asking.
I'm with you, but I think the thing is that they're really not administrators. They're actually
Right.
teachers of teachers trying to help them with learning how to teach better in the classroom. But
So that's a no.
excuse
Is
it.
that what you're saying?
To me is they're instructional people who are helping the teachers. They're not in an office doing paperwork and clerical.
But they're assistants to the teacher.
They are directly in there.
Necessarily teachers.
Correct.
Right.
But they could, some of them are
Well, this is what I'm getting
teaching.
at. If the teachers are scarce and our grades are going and our academics are going down, then maybe there is a correlation that we need to change how we staff and make these numbers different here for teachers. Because to me, it's pretty simple. The more teachers we got, the more our academics go up. And I would be curious to know if the state has more well, you can't, but he was asking, but if the state had more teachers than they have, which says that they don't have, they have more teachers than they have administrators. So
I think Dr. Bollinger,
from that perspective, I'm just saying, to me, it seems like there's a correlation, but maybe I'm wrong.
So the other thing I'm going to tell you.
But I'm not no rocket scientist.
Hey, I'm with you.
I'm
But
just saying.
Today when we talked about it, we also talked about how ESSER is going to really manipulate these numbers for the next few years. Because depending on how districts use their ESSER funds, a lot of them may have put teachers out there, and now they're going to have to pull them all back. Whereas we're stabilizing and we have kept ours, it could change those percentages again. So honestly, this coming year, this year right now, there's still districts who are having ESSER, maybe paying for teachers. So those state numbers are going to seem higher when ours may stay what they are because we're leveled. And then in the next 25 school year, we might see a little bit difference in the way the numbers are going to look. So
okay, so you're in the sports portion of our CISD, and we'll use. Hey, both teams are playing in the rain. You're going to suffer the same consequences whether you're fumbling or whether any task you have.
Yes.
So to me, if both teams are playing in the rain, which means the state versus us, why can't we function the same way the rest of the state is functioning? It's just some food for thought. And there you go. And like I said, when you're showing me these numbers and I'm looking at them, I'm like, whoa, there's a little disparity there. But okay, I get it.
But we're taking a great big look at it. Dr. Bollinger will tell you.
I was just going to make a comment. So I think it's also important to note when you're looking at the TAPER report on the staffing section, what they're doing is they're showing the percentage of each category compared to your overall staff. So it's easy to say that, okay, we're at 44% teachers, the state's at 48.7% teachers, so we have fewer teachers in the state. But that's not necessarily what that's saying. That's saying that out of all of our staff that...
Okay, I hear you. But if I read this, that is what it's saying. It's not saying that because you're explaining it to me. But if I read this, it is saying that.
Okay.
Point blank.
Let me get through my whole thought, and then we'll go there.
I didn't mean to
That's
interrupt
fine.
you, but that's what it's saying to me when I'm looking at this. Right.
So because we look at different data sources,
right.
the more staff we have that's outside of teachers, that number will go down, or the less staff we have, that teacher will go up. Like, for example, let's say that we add 10 police officers. Well, that's more non-teaching staff, so that would push our number down. But we don't use this number for staffing. We work with TASB. They provide data, and then in the data that they provide, you were asking earlier about comparable districts. And so they show us 20 to 21 comparable districts in Region 4, typically, and they show us, hey, you're overstaffed here, you're understaffed here. They look at class sizes, they look at teacher-to-student ratio, right. And that number really tells us kind of where we're at and how we need to use our money efficiently. So we can have this number, and by the way, this is last year's number. This is before we made the teacher cuts and the other cuts that we made district-wide. That's not this year. This is last year.
Yeah.
But we can still be overstaffed because we have a small teacher-to-student class size or teacher-to-student ratio. But if we have other staff that maybe other districts contract out, then that will push that number down. Like, for example, and I don't mean to belabor the point, but if a district contracts out custodians and they contract out maintenance and auxiliary, then that number doesn't show up here. And so their teacher number may be a little bit higher. So I think the important thing is to look at this as a critical point, but also look at what TASB says too, and that kind of gives us a pretty good picture.
For example, the state of Texas ratio for classroom student-teacher ratio, it says a maximum of 30 students per teacher, right? And you can actually extend beyond that 10% and have 33 kids per class. We seldom, if ever, have that large of classes typically in Goose Creek because we have district standards established through doing the comparison to the other districts. You want to speak to the district standards for classroom counts for elementary, middle, and high school?
Yeah, so each year when we staff, we look at our classroom counts for elementary, for junior school, and high school, and we go over that data with the school board whenever we do our workshops with budget, just to make sure that we're staffed appropriately. But we agree. I mean, the teachers are the most critical role, and if we don't have the right teachers and the amount of teachers in that role, then we will see that negative impact. And so we're trying to do all we can to push our staffing in that direction to fully support schools. That's the most important thing.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yes,
It's
sir.
exactly what I read right there. You're saying to me.
Another thing, Ms. McKay, you pointed out under central administration how you guys are coded just like we code kids. Previously in the taper report, you showed us that we're like half of what the state is in administrative salaries. So that could explain, once we pull the teacher salaried people out and put them with teachers or wherever we're going to put them, and let the administrators that belong in that category, those are going to probably balance out as well, which was a question I actually had written down here. But yeah, so yeah.
Just for comparison's sake, with a regional school, we have a school district in similar, matter of fact, we've had the exact same students in the past, but now they're down about 1,500 students from Goose Creek because of our growth and their lack of growth, Galena Park. So if we were looking at their data, they don't have a police department at all. So that's 50 positions less under auxiliary than we show. So it would inflate their teacher ratio and deflate their operational ratio. Does that make sense? That's just one example of how this can fluctuate according to where you spend your dollars. And in this case, we were mandated to have a police force, but not funded. So that's...
They weren't?
No. No, police officers are not funded.
No, I'm saying Galena Park, we were mandated to have police unfunded mandate.
So they did contract services. Okay. That's what I think we referred to it. Some choose to do contracted services versus hiring your own.
The next part of the taper does talk about teachers by experience, and you'll see that the percentages there, beginning the 1 to 5 years, the 6 to 10, the 11 to 20, and the over 20 years. You'll see that Goose Creek beginning, you had 14%. The state had 9.7. 1 to 5 were at 29.5. They were at 26.3. And then we start looking at 6 to 10, 11 to 20, and over 20. The state averages are a little higher than ours.
I on the beginning teacher thing, though, it's my understanding, and I'm not sure because I haven't really talked to anybody other than a few teachers that have told me. They have good pairing the teachers, the new teachers with teachers that give them, like help, role model
with
type.
Mentors.
There you go. And, I heard just casually talking about that they have their team working together. So, that kind of makes me more skeptical about our beginning teachers not being that good. Or whatever. I don't mean to.
No, it wasn't anything about reflecting their performance. Right. It's just experience is all it is. It takes 3 years to learn any job function.
Right. I get it. And I'm with you. I'm just trying to understand for myself because I'm reading this in good.
Then our Goose Creek teachers by ethnicity, we were 55% white, 29.6% Hispanic, 11.8% African American, and then we have our other races there as well.
So this is the demographics of
This is the demographic of the teachers.
Yeah. And I'm curious, do we practice or do we have DEI in here? No? Because I remember going through a discussion where we were trying to attract, different people, and I mentioned the fact that, hey, as long as we got good quality teachers and leaders that teach, because I grew up in an era where, it was really offset, but I had a great education. I was good. So I truly believe in having the best teachers. I ain't worried about what your nationality is or anything like that. I'm just worried about, can we attract the best quality teachers that we have and leaders that we can. That would be my deal.
Agreed.
That's why I asked.
One of the best practices, though, is that our teaching staff, our administrative staff, our school board should all be reflective of the community that we serve. That's the best practice. Now,
if it is, it is, and if it's not,
right.
And as long as we're producing quality education for our students, hey, so be it. That's the way I see it. But just like in college, you go to college, you get a good college education. Depends on yourself, really, and So what we give them is the best, hopefully. If it's reflective, okay. If it's not, okay too. Just get you an education.
And so the next section is on our House Bill 3 district goals. We do have to there are some requirements we have to have. We do have to have both an early childhood literacy and math. That's third grade reading, and third grade math is what we track, but there's also a K-2 component to that, and then also CCMR plan. We have to have at least one district-level administrator or employee to oversee the coordination of that plan. We do have to set specific quantifiable annual goals for each 5-year at each campus, and they have to be reviewed at least annually, and then we have to post that report on the district and campus websites. So specific plan requirements, we do have to look at student growth on third grade math and third grade reading assessment, which is STAR. The annual goals for students in each group evaluated, which is 10 or more in each student group. We do have to have targeted professional development for classroom teachers in kindergarten through third grade for campuses that the board identifies as not meeting the plan's goals. And then our annual goals may set specific, annual goals may be set for students in bilingual or ESL programs. For the CCMR, we do have to do the same thing. We have to set goals for student growth for CCMR. And then also there's goals set for each group that's evaluated with 10 or more students in that group. So progress, the original goals were adopted by the school board in 2020. And we will talk about, we're fixing to talk about the progress from the 22-23 school year. But just a reminder, the goals will have to be set by the board during the summer of the 23-24 school year for the next 5 years.
And that will likely be in a board workshop format this summer.
And so our early childhood literacy board outcome goal.
That would be nice.
The percent of third graders that will score at the meets grade level will increase from 37 to 52%. In 2020, we were at 37% at meets. The goal was to try to get to 52% by June of 2024, and that was because that is what the state targets were. And so that second line there is actually the state targets for 2023. And then when you look down, you'll see 22, 23, and 24. The numbers in 2023 are actually their actual numbers. In 2023, we said for all students we were supposed to be at 50% at meets. We are actually at 40% at meets, and then the same way for our sub-pops. You'll see if they were in red, it's because they were below the state target. If they're in green, they were above the state target. These are we set them based off of the interim targets that the state sets, because they have a 5-year thing, and we look at where we're at and what it's going to take us to get there by the end of that 5 years. So there is our early literacy. Early childhood math, we said we were going to go from 41% to 50% by June of 2024. You will see in 2023 across the board, we were below the state targets. CCMR, we were at 68% in 2020. We said we would get to 78% by 2024. We're actually at 82% in 2023, and then you'll see for CCMR, there's green all the way across the board for all the sub-pops. We will post a taper in the House Bill 3 goals. They're going to be posted on the district website. Paper copies are available. And so at this time, are there any questions?
I'm not asking anymore. I've done asked too many. Let somebody else.
Anybody else? All right. I'll take my turn now.
Yes,
first of all, thank you for all the data, all the PowerPoints. I thought you did a great job on it. What I've taken, these are just, I wore a suit tonight because I was planning on preaching. But I'll start with CCMR. And thank you for pointing out the celebrations there. You need to add to your speech anywhere you go that Goose Creek has set the standard in CCMR. With that said, we should be the best. We should be the highest because we started first and we've invested the most. So that's why where we are. And that may be a lesson for everything else that we're behind in. So on the elementary level, what I took from the data and the PowerPoints is there are worse performers, and I think we can all agree with that. My personal opinion is they have too many tests and too many disruptions. And I will go over that in great detail when we get to the school calendar in a little while. For the junior school level, I've seen zero significant difference between the blocked ELA performance and the other core subjects that are not blocked. And my personal opinion is we need to get rid of the block and save some teaching units. And then the end of course testing, it kind of follows the state, but we're still lower than we'd like to be. But my question is, could somebody talk me through if we have 68% of our kids pass English 1, but 94% of them graduate, what are we doing in the interim to get them to graduation, and at what cost financially and at what cost to the kid? What are they missing educational-wise to make up that missed test so they can graduate? Anybody? I really was hoping Ms. Jackson. I was really hoping Ms. Jackson would be here tonight.
So I'll dive in on
just
ELA. What are we doing? So if you are a little person that comes in from junior high and you did not meet the standard in junior high, we begin that intervention your 9th grade year in addition to your English 1.
So you're missing out on something else educational.
I'm not going to say missing out. We still complete a package.
You never taught an elective, did you?
No. So what we do is we refigure the rest of their electives to help prioritize things that they are most interested in.
Which is, I'm sorry, that's fancy language for you don't get an elective.
Well, you have a lot of elective opportunities. So we do remove an elective so that they can have an intervention opportunity.
And that's a cost to the student's educational experience.
It can be.
Okay.
But let me say this in a different way. So when a student comes and they have deficits to their ability to graduate, we still have those things that they prioritize. For example, when you sit a kid down and you say, baby, you didn't do well in 8th grade, so let's make some decisions about what you're going to do in 9th grade. What is important to you is like a top importance. We want to make sure that that's in there, and we train all of our counselors to do that each and every time. What do you need to graduate? Like, so how we're planning your 4-year plan. And then we go after that and say, now what can we select so that you can have an intervention opportunity?
Good. Do we track, and you segued perfectly into my next question to tie this all together. Do we track, is that 8th grade baby you just talked about that's not ready for 9th grade testing the same 5th grade baby that was not ready for 6th grade testing, which was the same 2nd grade baby that wasn't ready for 3rd grade testing? Do we track that? And Should we not know by the end of elementary school that this is not a great start taking kid?
Well, so I think STAR presents a lot of challenges for some of our learners. Either they're learning a new language or they're a first generation learner. I think just the test in general can be a challenge, but are we tracking it? Absolutely. So what does Eduphoria do for us? Can you chart that along the way? Sure, but it still doesn't negate the fact that you're here and now we've got to do something to
Well, it seems like we're doing better at secondary than anywhere else, specifically high school.
They work
So
hard with a lot of little
we're
people.
missing. Okay, some of you were here when we went through the ELA Early Learning Academy debate, and it was said over and over and over again, if we start them right, they're going to perform better as they get older. And maybe we're doing that with our 4-year-olds right now, but it hasn't made it to first, second, and third grade. I just graded third grade reading writing. Oh my God. That's it. But that's my sermon for today. Thank you for the answers.
I hope I answered your question, Mr.
Yes,
Clem.
absolutely. Thank you.
I have one thing that I would like to include. Thank you, Mr. Clem. And when I'm looking at the slides here and I look at the early childhood and outcome goals and doing that within our district, I think we look at the gaps in our services and where we're here and talking about it, but also in inclusion in curriculum. I think, Dr. I just lost your name, Bollinger. One of the things that I would like to see that we bring back as part of our strategic plan is on our equity in our meetings, because I think that brought a lot to the table, and for not only for the staff that was present, but for the students as well as the community too. Because when we look at equity, we're not just looking at, because we're looking at all groups, whether it may be with special needs students and even socioeconomic, all the levels. But I think that we were on to something, and I would like to see us continue with that.
And you're referring to the Student Advocacy Committee?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Right. Yes, we were on to something. It was going great. And I think that all brings this in the factor where we look at our gaps, where our student learning, we were doing all those. Because we're not just looking at equity based upon for having our staff match, our students, any of that. We were also looking at equity based upon the gaps of our students in the different groups and bringing that closer where we would close those gaps. So I think that's important for us to continue to move in that direction as part of our strategic plan as well.
I would agree.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like a hamster on a wheel, because I've been on here longer than everybody else. But the same thing we're talking about now, as far as the gap between 3rd, 4th, 5th grade until you go to junior high. It's always been reading. It's always been mathematics or science. But we've talked about this so much that it seems like I'm that hamster backpedaling now, that we started going backwards instead of going forward more. And we need to, that's something we need to really concentrate on, because, you know, when you get to junior high and you think you big dog, you know everything, but you don't know nothing. And then all of a sudden when you go to high school, then it changes, and then you start thinking about education a little bit more. But in that period between, I guess, the 3rd and the 8th grade, there's a big gap on our reading performance goes down a lot. And you know the old cliche, if you can read, you can learn anything. So I think that's one thing that in this whole scenario we need to really, really do better on our reading performance. Because like I said, I've heard this years ago. I don't know if some of you were here or not, but
maybe not.
Yeah. But it's been said before, but we need to make more emphasis on it and try to get our students in that again where we are emphasizing. And, we've come up with all of these different, programs, academies, and all of this, but it still comes down to one thing: educating the child and making sure that I don't have to sit at a community meeting and hear a kid who's special ed saying he never learned how to read when he was in school. And he was at a Goose Creek school, but he never learned how to read. So, thing I'm saying with everything said and done, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox, is that's where we need to make sure that learning gap is not lost in our reading program.
No, I'm good. I'm listening. I was just having a thought. I took a class in one of these CISD things, and some of the English, I went into one of the English reading, and they said if they don't capture them, I think it's by third grade or second grade, and their deficiencies, then they're going to be struggling the rest of the way through. And I don't know where we're at with that, but just some food for thought that we need to capture them in the early learning years,
So that was kind of what I was gonna, like our third graders that were basing our the board goals on. I know we don't want to blame things on COVID, but they did miss a huge part of that early learning because they were home. And so I think our main goal right now needs to be figuring out where we can fill those gaps and connect the dots for those kiddos so that as they're going up through the school systems, they're not falling further behind, and so because we are doing a great job at the high school, I think a lot of times it has something to do with maturity also, and they can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can see, if I don't pass these tests, I'm not graduating, and so they're a little more motivated, but we've just got to catch the babies up. So thank y'all.
In those, just so you know, the Early Learning Academy focus kids, their cohort will be third grade next year. Is that right? So the first grade. So we hope to see that gap being closed at third grade next school year. The two things that CNI's charge is for all campuses, for all children, is basically premised around two things that we focus on in Goose Creek. One is Tier 1 instruction, the highest quality Tier 1 instruction that the student can possibly receive on the first delivery. The second thing is PLCs. Our professional learning committees are the way in which we get Tier 1 instruction at a high level. That's because teachers are meeting to talk about the children that are deficient and identifying Tier 2 and Tier 3 strategies to assist those students to be remediated, to be caught up. So we have the systems in place. And I want to point out, too, just the difference between the two PowerPoints. The first one was raw data, and it was talking about meets, recognized, and masters. This one, you posted just passing. In the just passing each of those domains, we were within 1 or 2 percentage points, whereas the meets, recognized, and masters, there was more. There was a greater gap from the state average. But in the overall just passing generally, we were not as far off as the first PowerPoint where we got kind of excited there. So this PowerPoint showed a little bit more of the overall average of our passing rates. But the professional learning communities is what our principals are charged with. Each campus principal is charged with conducting collaborative meetings with each grade level, with each department level, with each subject matter in order to identify those students and then close those remedial gaps. But just want to say the structures are in place. We need to continue. And I want to also make sure that there was not anything misunderstood about our new teachers. It's just an identification that we have almost half of our teachers have 5 or less years of experience now. 5 years ago, it was a third. So there has been a shift in the number or the percentage of our teachers, meaning since COVID, not because of COVID, but since COVID, more teachers have retired. So our veteran, more experienced teachers have retired, leaving us to fill the gap with younger, newer teachers. But not to knock them, because they are sponges. They are coming on board. They're listening to their mentors, and they're jumping on board and closing those gaps. But it is a process to learn this occupation. You don't, and we've learned that through not just our DOIs or adjuncts, but new teachers. not everything's taught in college even about pedagogy. So anyway, just a few points to cover, but any other questions the board may have?
I had one more thing.
Absolutely.
I think that something that could be helpful is looking at the amount of money we spend on our experts to come walk around our buildings to tell us what we're doing right and wrong, kind of reallocating that money to put people in the classrooms and actually working with the children, because I'm pretty sure that could pay for several teacher salaries. So if we could look at that, get some more hands-on people.
You're talking about professional development?
Well,
experts coming outside?
Well, consultants and things like that
Right.
coming, because that's kind of what our administrators are for. They should be the experts on campus. They can walk around the building and see the things that are going right and the things that aren't, and address those things. And and we definitely need to train our administrators to see that, but I don't think we need to bring people into the district. Like, it's just a lot of money. So
good point.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
All right. I think we are moving on to action items now.
All right. Well, administration will bring before the board this evening action items 8A, consideration of the consent agenda. We have a donation from Covestro. Number 2, donation from ExxonMobil. Number 3, 24-25 instructional calendar. Number 4, someone get ready for number 3. Number 4, proposed low attendance waiver for 10 campuses on January 17th, 2024. Number 5, adoption of the resolution authorizing employee pay during emergency closure of the district. And number 6, one-time payment for early notice resignation or retirement to any full-time certified teacher, nurse, or librarian employee. That is the consent agenda as presented by administration this evening.
Okay, is there any discussion, anything that needs to be pulled?
Pull 3 and 6, please.
Anything else?
Seek a motion to approve 1, 2, 4, 5.
So moved. Second. Go ahead.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Glenn, a second by Mr. Renteria. Any further discussion on 1, 2, 4, and 5 on the consent agenda? All in favor, raise your hand. Have 6, 4, 0 against. Motion passes. All right, number 3, the 24-25 instructional calendar. Did you have questions, Mr. Clam?
Come on up.
I have questions.
Ms. Garcia is here to represent C&I and the... Okay, great.
Awesome. Brought the big guns.
So you know how it works. Press the button on the front. A little light will turn from red to green when you're ready to speak. Welcome. Go ahead and identify yourselves as a part of the committee. Please share with us who you are.
Good evening, school board members, President Guy and Dr. O'Brien. I'm Leslie Garcia.
There you go.
Okay. Good evening, school board members, President Guy and Dr. O'Brien. I'm Leslie Garcia. I'm over Special Projects and PD.
Amparo Martinez, community member.
Tamika Johnson, student wellness.
Evelyn Mexis, college and career counselor.
Great. The memo says you started in September. Walk me through that process.
So
it's an ILC process, right?
yes, so we allocated for some members, and so we got our calendar committee together. We've met, we discussed the calendars that were in proposal. And so we had several discussions about the different calendars to present to the campuses.
Okay. All right. What's the significant difference between A, B, and C?
A is going to be similar to the calendar that we are on this school year. B is going to be different as far as the Christmas holiday, and then they wanted a C calendar for midweek start for calendar C.
Okay. So pretty insignificant. I mean, really. Okay. Did we count the number of days we go to school versus the number of days we're off? For example, we go to on calendar A, we go to school 15 days, then we're off for a day. Then we go to school for 13 days, and we're off for kids. I'm just doing Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Then we go for 14 and a half days and have 5 and a half off. Then we go to school for 11 days and have 1 off. We go to school for 13 days, we have 5 off. Then we go to school for 14 and a half days and we have 12 and a half off. We are essentially scheduling a 4-day work week, a 4-day teaching week, because for every 4 days we go to school, we have 1 off. And the second semester is similar. And then let's take out full day shutdowns for STAR tests. That's a non-teaching day. And then let's take off, I don't even know all the acronym. End of course, not end of course. CUA, this screener, that screener, the other screener, where each individual subject is going to shut down their classroom for a day. So look at what I said about elementary school earlier. We have devised a calendar that has zero continuity for teaching, because we're always stopping to do something else. So if we're a district of innovation, maybe it's time to take this calendar back and come up with something innovative that's good for the kids and good for continuity and good for learning. Because what I know from teaching for so long is we had to practice basic skills every single day. And teachers have to have time to spiral back and pick up basic skills. And they don't have time to do that in this kind of a calendar. PLC could be done during conference time. We don't have to have a day off every 6 or 8 weeks. I mean, there's just tons of things that we need to look at. And this is just Tawadi. We're doing it because that's the way we've always done it.
Well, it's definitely something that we can consider, and we'll go back and reconvene as a committee.
I mean, I guess I didn't really have a question. I just had another sermon. But, you know, that would be my request to the board, but I'm just one person. And did we have teacher representatives on the?
We did.
Okay, because I told Dr. O'Brien this in our meeting the other day, and I don't think he would be offended if I shared it. But I think there's a disconnect between what administrators think teachers believe and what teachers really believe about the calendar. Because I think I'm probably in schools more than a lot because I volunteer to read. If a teacher wants me to do something, I come do it. But over and over again, especially from our more experienced teachers, I hear there's too many disruptions. There's too many tests. There's too many days off. There's too many field trips. There's too many. And I don't think a significant number of them are going to be mad if we don't have a week off in October. And I don't think a significant number of them are going to be mad if we go to school a day or two the week of Thanksgiving. And I don't think a significant, well, they're all going to be mad if we don't have spring break, including me. But that's kind of embedded. But we're still building our education system around the farmer calendar. And because I drove to Fort Worth, that's okay. We taught kids that wanted to be at school. Yeah, well, we need to practice. We need to be at school, and we need to be teaching. So I'm going to just beat the horse again if I say another word. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Just if you'd help out just a little bit of I think you started, but we didn't finish on the process by how you got to the 3 calendars. How many meetings did you have? How many people are on the subcommittee, the calendar committee? How many are on the ILC? When did it come back to the ILC for the vote? It went to all teachers in the district for the vote?
Correct.
So talk just the process real quickly.
The process is we met several times, and I can provide those dates, and then we corresponded through email for any modifications that were needed. We did present this to the ILC in December, and we discussed it and had a conversation about things that needed to be changed or things that they wanted to see. And then from there, we presented it to the campuses once the modifications were made from our committee, ILC, and then to the campuses.
It was about 1,200 teachers voted, just under 1,200, so it's about a little more than half.
It's in the packet. Yeah. I want to say it was more than that. It was 1251 to be exact.
And teachers participated in this other than the voting part, you said?
Teachers were the only participants in the voting.
Maybe they want it off. I don't know.
Well, from the communication that we got from campus representatives, they were in favor of the breaks that we had. So that's where the committee was in consensus. That's how we would move forward.
Based on what?
The campus representatives and their communication.
What did you send out? I'm sorry.
I said from the conversations from the campus representatives, the consensus was they were in favor of the holiday breaks that we had. So as a committee, we decided to move forward.
How many people were in those meetings?
There was 13 of us.
And how many of them were asked if this is best for kids or best for adults?
I think that was conversation that we had.
I don't think so.
But I do want to just address structurally speaking. I know that the calendar committee had nothing to do with the proposal for the PD. The professional development is the thought behind that was, as I recall, you can do all the professional development you can in the first week before school starts, but it's not sustained throughout the year. So once every 6 weeks, there was a half-day designed to bring back potentially a speaker, potentially our own people that are speaking about whatever
there are other ways to do that, and we're not exploring them.
Right. You mentioned
we have to give teachers a 45-minute conference without kids, but it doesn't say without a conference, without a training, without a something. It just says without kids.
Yeah, I think the challenge there is just getting them all at the same time.
Lunch is duty free.
Yes.
But yeah. I'm sorry, not giving up.
I don't want you to, but we'll find a solution. We'll bring back, I think, maybe some things according to Mr. Clem's comments. This is the way we've always done it. It's been new since we implemented the fall break because that didn't exist 5 years ago, but we've been doing it the same since it was instituted. Maybe a survey instrument you can send out to all faculty members and get with C&I and this committee that you formed to develop some more thorough questioning.
Maybe Calendar A could be what we've always done. Calendar B could be something new and innovative that's best for kids. And Calendar C could be whatever's best for grown-ups. And let's see where it falls.
Well, I mean, I totally respect that. I know that we've met for the 2025-26 committee. And so one of the proposals was to have a different fall break so that we could have a midweek start with the Christmas holiday being what it had been. So we're already in the works for proposing that for the next school year, for the 2025-26. So I understand what you're saying.
So
it's
also,
definitely something we can look at.
Just for fairness, not this school year, I didn't participate in it, but last school year's calendar committee, we had a grant opportunity to do year-round schooling. And so it was 30 additional days of instruction, to your point. 3 campuses for us were identified as candidates because the leadership of those campuses said, we'll do it. And it was a program called ETSI, and it was a grant, and it was supposed to be paid for by TEA, was making the proposal for it to be funded. And all said and done, when we went through the application process, we're prepared to submit it, they let us know that it would cost the district. It was not a fully funded grant. It was about half-funded grant. So it would cost each campus that opted to have 30 additional days of instruction, cost them over $1 million per campus. Yeah. So that was a $3.5 to $4 million add to us being innovative and trying something completely new called year-round school. So we've looked at it. They've tried doing different things, but to your point, we'll go ahead and do a survey and find out where we stand with something different than what we've currently doing, providing continuity and longer. What I heard him say was longer strands of instruction without breaks. Maybe every other 6 weeks, something.
Well, it's difficult any way you slice it. I've heard teachers say they've been, it's been drastic in their schedules and the way that they have to operate around things. They end up working after school, before school, all kinds of stuff. So I understand how difficult.
Well, I jokingly said at one of my executive council meetings, we were no longer doing the STAR, so we no longer needed to prepare for it. So we're going to let teachers do their job and just teach. But we are bound by required assessments. But we absolutely, I know that the entire administrative team, including campus principals, are looking at how we can reduce specifically redundancy. Why do we need multiple measures throughout the course of a 6 weeks?
And I know that I mean, anyone in education knows that a half day is just kind of not a whole lot gets done on a half day, right? So I'd rather have a full day every other 6 weeks than a half day every 6 weeks. And then also, like we're calling it a PLC day, but what I'm hearing is that they're sitting in training. So that's kind of two different things. And so I think that on the PLC days, we need to really let the teachers PLC. They need to be able to plan together. They need to be able to look at data. They need to look at their assessment instruments and figure out what's working for each one of them and what's working for you and how can it's what your scores on this are better than mine and what are you doing differently and how can I do it differently and that kind of thing instead of sitting listening to somebody because that's not what they want to do on a half day.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Right, and the way
during the election, I wanted to throw this out. During the election, I heard some of the teachers say they were given a half day to go vote. That was kind of unusual to me.
That is false.
I'm just saying that this is what I heard out there. In fact, I saw Ms. Martinez out there. She was out there campaigning. I remember. See, it's coming back to me here, but I'm just saying that.
Who else was campaigning? Who else was campaigning?
Well, she's the only one I saw. No trustees. I saw Randy go vote. That was about it. But, I just heard that, and I thought to myself, don't forget to put the voting Super Tuesday in there, So
that's listed as a PLC day.
Okay.
So for our calendars,
as a trustee, I got to bring that up.
Right. For our calendars, there's 4 full-day PLCs and 2 half-day to come up with the 5.
Before you walk away completely beat up, we want to thank you for the work that you've done to prepare the calendar options for our teachers, for our faculty, and we do expect that you'll bring something back in the near future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Sampson.
He has a question.
I was wondering.
The hamster.
No, not the hamster. No, this was just when you were making this calendar up, what are the different things that teachers in general were trying to eliminate or trying to have that kind of fell in the same basket together the most? In other words, this is most important, that's most important, this most important.
Topic of conversation would have been the October break, and then the other topic of conversation would have been the midweek start for the primary schools. Because they were communicating how difficult it is for those kids to start on Monday and go throughout the week, that the midweek start was something that they would really consider for the benefit of the students. Hence, calendar C.
Okay. That's basically, I was trying to figure out what you were voting on, and just everybody said, oh, let's have a holiday here, but that's what I was trying to figure out, whether or not there were specific items that all the teachers felt that this is most important, this was most important.
So the other parameters, Mr. Sampson, are the state of Texas requires 180 days of instruction, right, and you may apply for a waiver to reduce that. And outside of those parameters, it's subject to input from the community, from our parents, from our teachers.
That was my question.
The only thing I would add to that is on that survey, just in keeping with what he said, out of respect for what he was mentioning, is the fact that how can we do this with the best interest of the kids and their education and still continue to be consistent with our teaching, I guess. Any ideas from teachers? See what
they're getting feedback from them.
Yep.
And the possibility I've heard of other districts use the instructional minutes innovatively, including such things as 15-minute longer day on any given period of time to constitute an hour for 4 days or something of that nature. So there's a lot of innovative things you can do with minutes.
Because during that October break, we still have sports and other things going on during that time, right?
Still active, yes.
I mean,
same for Christmas break, spring break. There's still fine arts and sports going on.
I'm sure some of them parents don't like that either. They can't take a break.
No, sir, they don't.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
That's right.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
So if we're not taking action on that item, do we?
I would administratively, ask the board if we could suspend that item until the next board meeting.
We don't have to vote on that? Okay. Okay, number 6. We wanted to pull that one also
Yes, please.
for a one-time payment.
We've done, are they going to make you do this by yourself? Bless your heart.
No backup
So
today. No
we've
backup.
done the one-time payment for a long, long time. I being one of the people that decided that I was retiring in October and waited till this came out to retire. But based on past experience, either what do we budget for this in this year's budget, or what's the estimated cost right now?
Sure. And we've had a lot of discussion before putting this out before the board because we know there is an investment on it. And we've seen an uptick in resignations throughout the school year over the past few years, just due to stress levels, due to experiences. We're seeing more people break contract to resign just due to the circumstances. And so, but at the same time, we know that by offering this incentive, what it does is it helps us with staffing and it helps us with recruitment. And so the staffing piece is, as we have resignations, especially if we're making adjustments in staff, then we're able to make those decisions quicker. We start going to job fairs late February, early March.
I'm going to follow Mr. Renteria's lead and interrupt you here. How much?
So it depends on how many resign. I would say the number probably is around $40,000 to $50,000.
All right.
When you look at it's only for teachers, nurses, and librarians. So we're looking at acquiring highly qualified staff in that area.
What's the cost-benefit ratio or cost-benefit analysis tell us?
So I can't give you an exact number on that, but I would say the cost-benefit analysis really is that the trade-off for the investment is we're spending $40,000 or $50,000 to acquire highly qualified staff because we're competing with other districts in our area. So, for example, when Dr. Still goes to a job fair, if we don't have positions to hire for, then we have to say thank you for your information, and the district next to us will pick them up. The good ones go quick.
Would a lesser amount work?
Possibly.
Because I think last year we saw a significant more occurrence of resignation after the March deadline than we did. I mean, I understand the season and it's a benefit, but perhaps in the future it could just be another way to cut some coins from the bottom line. I just don't see it as effective as it was several years ago.
Right, and I think what we can do is maybe track that data and look at before and after that date, just to show you the difference. We do have a lot resign after that date. Of course, we don't pay them for the early resignation, but we feel like it does speed up the process for those who already know they're going to resign or retire, and then that allows us to start filling those positions. Once we get to June and July, it's very difficult to find highly qualified staff at that point because the good ones have been taken for the most part.
Maybe you could look backwards and see, and when we come into budget workshops coming up for next year's budget, we could have this discussion again and I'm not turn red in the face about it tonight.
We can do it.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Are we asking to pull that item then, or just to consider it for future? Thank you.
Any other questions on that item? Do we have a motion?
What is it, 3 and 6?
6.
Okay. Make a motion that we approve item 6.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria and a second by Mrs. Barat-Timms for consideration for consent agenda item number 6. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, have 5-4, 1 opposed, motion passes. So future board agenda items, board trainings, and board meetings. We have governance camp coming up in Galveston for those that are going to be able to make it. Our next board meeting is February 19th, and then we need to schedule a team of 8 training.
I'm working on that information for the board at this time.
Okay.
So our board meeting's February 19th, the same this month, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Don't want Naomi to yell at me.
Any future board agenda items that anyone would like to be considered?
Can I? Since I'm the hamster tonight. So.
Hey. Well, that's what you branded yourself as, the hamster.
No matter. He bald-headed.
That's it. The bald-headed hamster. Go ahead.
I would like to get with Mr. Martinez, and we had, the coaches, all the coaches, but I also like to hear from the female aspect of athletics on the campuses and some of the other sports on the campus also, besides just, the ones we have. I know they're the athletic directors of the campus, but I like to hear something about what they're doing and how they're progressing and how things are going. That's just my feeling. I'm not speaking for the whole board, but that's just my feeling. I like to hear their feelings about what they're doing, whether it's softball, volleyball, swimming, polo, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I like to hear something they have to say.
Yes, sir.
I got one thing I'd like to ask about and maybe put on the agenda is insurance and benefits. See where we're at with that and update. I don't want us to.
We negotiated a new contract this past year, and it was very successful in its implementation, but we're happy to give you an update on that. It's generally done in June, about before. Is that fine?
That's fine. I just want to make sure that we are good, and we don't go through what we went through last year. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Did you have something, Ms. Barat, Tim?
But Dr. Bollinger said it was fine.
Dr. Bollinger, did you hear that? Just a request for the student advocacy update.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we move into closed session? Okay. Then we will move into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, .072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session, and it is 8:04. Okay, we will reconvene into open session at 9:23. And it is time for consideration of personnel.
Administration brings before the board a list of candidates to approve for elections and accept resignations and retirements.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Renteria. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Have 6-4-0 against. Motion passes.
Administration brings before the board for consideration the approval of administrative elections. E3A, Human Resources Director, Monica Juarez.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Renteria. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 6-4-0 against. Motion passes.
E3B, Academic Dean, Kristen Canatella.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Clem, a second by Mr. Renteria. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 6-4-0 against. Motion passes.
E3C, Elementary Counselor, Benjamin Dong.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Renteria, second by Mr. Campisi. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 6-4-0 against. Motion passes.
No further recommendations at this time. We would ask that consideration of F to be postponed for a later date.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Barat-Tibbs, second by Mr. Renteria. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 6-4-0 against. Motion passes. And
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to wish everybody happy Valentine's Day. If I don't see y'all, love all you guys.
Thank you, you too.
Will you be mine?
No.
This meeting is adjourned at 9:26.
Don't roll that way, brother.